Okay. Okay, Rabbi say. Page 124. V'im le'niftach Pesach l'Chovos b'tchila. Okay. We don't allow. If we defeat the Yitzhar, if we from the start we don't open the door, even a little bit to the desires, pleasure for popularity. Normally, mishaloisam nisnag b'maysarim v'lu darf acharei. We don't open the door to satisfy their wishes, to indulge in luxuries and chase after them. So says Ravilla, we must not get in the habit of traveling for pleasure and spending money on unnecessary things. Once we get accustomed to yielding to the Yitzhar, there's no end to where it will lead us. I mean, this opens up the whole sugya of Pishus, as Shechem talks about, which he says is a personal g'darim. Chazal made for Klal Yisrael with the rule of has to be something that the tzibur yochel lamed, but there's place for personal g'darim, especially when a person is aware of his own weaknesses, to make a geder, and deals there with hanos. You make a geder for yourself so that you don't get too much into it, and it could bring you to other things. And the Yitzhar, there's no need for maisarim, superfluous things, luxuries. And as for our painful efforts to earn a livelihood, that's enough to go and push for extra, put an extra stress. You get the ulcers, you get heart attacks. And you can tell the Yitzhar that if Hashem wants to give us extra things without our having to busy with them, and and have to think about them, and we would use them in a proper and worthy manner. Sometimes Hashem gives it to us. You can get an inheritance. You can win. You can open a business, and it just without any extra effort, it's tremendously successful. You can buy stocks. There's many ways that Hashem can give us plenty without us having to invest extra koiches in that. And if we get that, so then it says you tell the Yetzer, so that's okay. I'll use them in a proper and worthy manner. But if not, if HaKadosh doesn't give me these extras, doesn't put me in position to have them, then I'll be okay. I'll be nistapek b'mazon, make do with the food and need nothing else. Also, Yeshava Yetzer in such a way, if this is how you confront the Yetzer, this is how you deal with the Yetzer, this is the way it'll be broken and defeated. Okay, so I'm not going after them. Going after them, it sounds like, is the dangerous thing. But if Hashem gives it to you, and it's easier than to choose to use it correctly without getting caught in the trap. But if we listen to the Yitzhar on these things, will go downward, one level to the other, till it leads us to ruination in this world and the world to come. It's not only a sugya of Olam Haba, it's a sugya of Olam Hazeh. Like I would think that it's like quicksand. Olam Hazeh becomes like quicksand. You need more. Chazal, Mishesh Lamea, or it's a Masayim, and Meis Hatzi. Tavase biyodai. If you don't live with the Eza Osher, Sameach Bechelka, whatever Hashem gives you, then you can't enjoy Yolam Hazos. You're so busy with what you don't have and what you need. Let's see what he says over here. Person who gives it to the Eitzah will ultimately find himself outside the worlds of Torah, even though his descent is only one step at a time. Before he knows he's outside it. And he says you shouldn't think it's an exaggeration if you examine the life, trajectory of people over time, especially Shiva people. I mean, you have a lot of people that, they learned in yeshiva, they were inspired. They got married, they even learned for a while, and then they went into business. And without staying very close to the yeshiva, constantly making that your home base, so to speak, they find themselves very far away. They drift away slowly. They move, to a different neighborhood, a more modern neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very common thing that happens. Okay. Oh, so now he says this is the 10th chapter. Deceiving the learned. Whatever that means. Let's see. These have been initial examples by which the Yetzer brings doubts into the minds of an uneducated man. When he's weak in wisdom, and the knowledge of Hashem and His Torah. But what about someone who's strong? He is a Talmid Chacham. He knows. In the knowledge of Hashem and Torah, the Yetzer tries to bring ruin upon him with shibush b'chachmasai uvemasel miderech hatana varaya, and introduce error into his thinking and his actions by means of arguments and proofs. From wherever he can, muskal reasoning, akosav, psukim, kubal, tradition. I think it was in this week's, Ashvis Yisrael, Toras Havigdor. He dedicated it to consulting the Chachamim, right? There's a lot of room to make mistakes. You could learn Torah, right? Because the Gemara says, right? It's Sama Chaim Maminim boy, it's Sama Movis, the Masbilim boy. The Torah could be used, Rahman al-Tzlan, to prove all kind of wrong things and terrible things. Even if someone is a Chacham and he knows Torah, the Yetzer tries all kind of ways. And that's what he says the haLevavos, you bring proofs from psukim, makubal, tradition, you can bring proofs from everywhere. The Yetzer can catch you. And it'll produce seemingly amazing proofs from a bewildering array of such proofs, in which the premises are not true, and conclusions do not necessarily follow. He says, some bring unexpected proofs on him, so that he's unaware of the falsehood in them. He becomes impressed by the proofs. He never thought down that road. He never considered that. So the Yetzer could get him there. He could come up with some type of proof. It seems to make so much sense. And he brings, pseudo proofs to support evolution. They draw conclusions from various kinds of fossils found at various strata of rock and gravel. The assumption is that the lower levels came first and the upper levels came afterwards. But that's absolutely false. Who could say how much time elapsed? The layers could have been formed simultaneously under the influence of water streams flowing in different directions. Even if the premises are valid, they may be making illogical deductions based on these premises. He says, the greater the person is, the greater the Yetzer Hara. Even if you're an experienced Talmid Chacham, it's always bringing new arguments. People think that the Yetzer of the Vilna Gaon must have been very small. So a man once said to him, I wish I had your Yetzer Hara. And the Gaon responded, heaven forbid that you should have my Yetzer Hara. Of course, the Yetzer Hara was huge. Clearly, the Yetzer Hara that works against a Gaon is a Gaonish Yetzer Hara, worthy of going up against such a great man. A brilliant man wouldn't listen to a small Yetzer Hara. He also has that Bechira. Says Yeravam ben Avad was a Gadol Adar, a great Talmid Chacham. How could he have failed so miserably? How could such a great man have been so misguided to cause a breakup of Klal? He says because the Yetzer came with correspondingly high-level Torah skills. And he goes on to bring other examples from the Gemara. Achisoifel, Elazar ben Aroch, and nowadays we have to be on guard against the missionaries who take verses from Tanakh and twist their meanings. They bring proofs from Psukim. And unless you take out the Navi and learn the Navi properly, they quote, verse and everything, and makes it sound like there's a proof. Years ago in Yerushalayim, a yeshiva boy about 17, 18 years old was persuaded by missionaries and ran away with them. The boy learned a little bit. He thought he understood a verse, but the missionary then showed him certain verses with his own parish. And the boy was not ready to answer. This doesn't just happen with missionaries. The Yetzer in all forms uses verses, uses reasons. He uses Mamori Chazal, Torah Shabbat Peh, whatever he can in order to attack a person who's somewhat learned. So he'll show him all kind of Gemaras, all kind of statements, all kind of things that could be misunderstood. There are many Chazals that are written in all of Agadata is written, shrouded in you need the Divrei Chazal, you need the Mefarshim to peel away the mashal and explain what it really means. So people come and they quote all kind of Divrei Chazali. Look, it's a Gemara, it's a pasuk. Says something interesting here. He says, so to serve Hashem and what the haLevavos considers the best ways to study all these subjects and know the falsehood of our enemies. That's the best way. However, our generations over the last 700s of years have come to the conclusion that we're not capable of teaching everybody everything. So the Jews have adopted the attitude of stubborn resistance. Stubborn resistance is a big mitzvah. We gave our lives for it. The Jews who were burned to death for refusing to bow down to the gods weren't able to answer the missionaries. The priest said, here's your own Bible. It says this and this. These poor Jews didn't know enough to answer back, but they were stubborn in their faith. They went to their deaths like martyrs al Kiddush Hashem. That's how a nation adopted the attitude of not doing things the way the haLevavos wants. So women, children, and Amiorites trust in the truth of their faith. They're loyal and they're not going to yield no matter what. But the haLevavos is directing his words to people who are capable. They should try to learn the truths about all these things. That will open their eyes and they'll live a different kind of life. But interesting enough that he's bringing that for the regular person. The haLevavos was talking about someone's the Talmid Chacham, who's a big thinker. He has to invest. He has to know the answers. He has to know the emes. But for the regular Jew, it's a emunah pshuta. It's I don't know, but I believe. I give up my life for that. The person who will know that Christianity is a sheker from the beginning to end. It's a huge edifice built on nothing but fairy tales. If you know a little bit of Tanakh, you see how wrong Christianity is. It's a miracle that it's able to conquer the world. Hashem wants to test the Jewish people, so he caused this sheker to spread over the entire world. I mean, it's an Olam HaSheker. The Quran is also silly. The many foolish things Muhammad said revealed his ignorance. He said that Hashem spoke to him all the time, told him each chapter and each line. Then he got on his horse on Harabayis, where the Beis Hamikdash used to be, and he rode straight to Gan Eden with his horse. Every word is sheker v'chazal. For the foolish Arabs who come out of the desert, that became their religion.
Something happened?
No. I'm just reading. Some Christians became very educated and tried to defend their religion. They built up universities with their books, just like the Vatican, a tremendous number of books defending Christianity. For instance, there's a church called the Church of Immaculate Conception. Immaculate Conception means it was pure. But that man was conceived in the most filthy way possible. A married woman became pregnant from a man who was not her husband. It's the story of the most filthy, sinful conception, yet they call it Immaculate Conception. And the whole church is named after that. Then there are universities where for centuries lectures were given proving every detail of the story, reinforcing all the lies. However, if you know a little bit of history, a little bit of Tanakh, a little bit of common sense, you see the whole thing is nothing but a castle in the air. Okay. Let's go further in the Sefer itself. If your mind is clear and your intellect is strong in the art of presenting persuasive arguments. Well, often has horror by the and in the technique of defending the truth in the course of a debate. Some people have that koyach. They have a koyach. They know how to respond. It's a special gift. Doesn't mean you're the biggest Talmid Chacham out there, but you know how to respond to arguments. Often has Torah by in the techniques of defending the truth in the course of a debate. You see the fallacies in the Yetzirah's proofs and arguments. Then the truth will become apparent to you. You see it for what they are. And your wisdom will be freed from uncertainty. Actions will be saved from confusion. However, if your mind is not capable of this, you don't know how to respond to philosophical and scientific arguments of the Yetzirah. Its persuasive power of you will be all the more powerful because it sounds good. You don't know how to respond. Its attacks to control will be more frequent and completely subduing you. To envelop you on all sides, inside and out. The Yetzirah of false science and philosophy is the most dangerous from Yetzirah, even more than the seductive temptations of the passions. Because it comes against when you're involved with tivus, you know the emes. But here, it comes against you with the viewpoint of wisdom and learning. It leads you on by the method of logical reasoning. The tanuach daifcha that you confident you can rely on it. And now you're trapped because you don't know that you're wrong. You don't have a starting point. Someone that has a stamataiva, so he knows the starting, he knows it's wrong, he knows it's awesome. So he can be entrapped, but at least he knows that there's an issue here. But if you're talking about the Yetzirah that goes for your chachma, for your knowledge, for your belief system. If he conquers that, then there's nowhere to go from that. Because Yafata Sikha, when Yitzhak is convinced your mind, Yata Me'alecha will turn away from you. And then it will utilize your own mind against you. Once your mind is corrupted, it will take up the job of leading you off the path. Because you're relying on your mind. When you're uncertain about what to do, when you trust in your own judgment, when you don't understand the meaning of something, you don't know what to do. And if he's able to be meshachet your mind, he's able to warp your mind, then plant some seeds of untruth, then all you're thinking after that is based on that. They say Pshat in famous Gemara in Brachos, when Rebbe Metzaki was on his deathbed, and he said he saw two paths in front of him. I think Chaim Shmulevitz says it. One leading to Elam Haba, one leading to Gehenna. They ask, Rebbe Metzaki, he's the one who saved all of Torah. Everything's based on it. And he's afraid that maybe he's going. And he said that if you make even a tiny deviation at the beginning, and you don't realize that it's a deviation, it's tiny. But then from there on, you build, and you build straight. You're going to end up at the end miles away from the real straight road. And you don't even realize it. You don't realize that there was a slight deviation. He says the Yetzer Hara uses your mind against you. Once he's implants something that's not emes, then you build and you're convinced how emes it is. And you'll teach it. And you go out there to prove it's right. Because you really think it is right. And you don't realize that it's all built on a little, they say on a straight path. You meet other people, but not straight. You're going all off. So in effect, be aware of being passive. You must fight back immediately and energetically. Sometimes you feel you got to be quiet. You don't know the answers. You can't let it in. You can say, I don't know enough about this, and I'm leaving it. I have my rabbeim, I have my truth, I have my Masorah, and that's where I'm stopping. He says, when it has overpowered you, and dominated you with the assistance of your own mind, with the help to deceive you, and the generalize in your eyes, falsehoods, under the cloak of valid arguments. That's where it's scary. You have proofs to what you're saying. Yet will lead you away from a level that is close to truth and where falsehood is concealed, being only a minor part of its arguments. To the next level, where there's less truth and more falsehood. This is what we were describing. You start off with a little sheker, but mainly emes. As you continue, the sheker becomes greater, the emes becomes, but you're convinced because it's al pi haseichel. It's about, I once had this cartoon of picture of someone's head. It was going in one side, and inside the head, there were all kind of thoughts. So that when it came around the other side, it came out as a coil. In other words, it goes into the brain, but if the brain is not straight, if your thinking is not straight, if there's falsehoods there, it comes out based on what you think is logical conclusions. It comes out distorted. Will not desist from continuing to move you down from level to level. Until it brings you to a level where all truth is concealed. There's absolute falsehood. Ultimately uproot you from this world and top you from the levels of reward in the world to come. Thus your intelligence will become an evil for you. It's turned against you. And your own mind will be a means for your destruction. Once he gets you somewhere, then all your thinking is built on that. And then all your intellect, you can be a genius. And you become a genius l'ra. I saw this happen. Oh, he says, this is because you're not being deceived by ordinary arguments. You will have convinced yourself that you have found a higher truth, which you are prepared to defend because it's your own. When a man's mind becomes corrupted with his philosophy, it's the worst thing of all. I saw this happen before my eyes. There was a nice young man who came to listen to the truth because he was searching. He seemed to get firmer and firmer, but all of a sudden, one day he got up and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave you now. I've adopted a certain system called humanism. He had studied it from time to time, but as the months passed, well, he didn't fight back. He kept going to the college that he attended. Little by little, he became influenced. So one day he got up and said goodbye, and I never saw him again. He didn't see the falsehood. He thought his mind was capable of judging what's right and what's not right. And therefore, the end was that he went down to destruction, became lost forever. Classic example of this phenomenon is Elisha ben Avuya. He was a great Tana, right? But it became interested in Greek and Roman philosophy, ultimately adopted it as his own. Of course, how false it is. Their teachings were nothing more than guesswork and had no foundation at all. Nevertheless, in those days, that philosophy was considered wisdom. As a result, he was excommunicated. People referred to him as Acha. Spinoza. He was once a member of the firm community living in Amsterdam among firm Jews. But he left the community and began to rely on his mind. He thought his mind was perfect. And then he became an enemy of the Torah concepts.
He says that the Greek philosophy and Roman philosophy was nothing more than guesswork and no foundation. It seems like in the Gemara that the Amoraim used to, they entertained this philosophy as they didn't just dismiss it. It was a lot of, they had all the debates and all the
they had all the debates against it, not for it, right?
But it wasn't it
look, it says that Reb Meir. It says Reb Meir was able to learn from Acher, right? Yeah. He was able to differentiate the good from the bad. He had that ability. So I don't know exactly which Gemara is referring to, but I would assume that
Rabbi Baba Chana, the Saba the Beatuna, and all the even Yeshaya, the Navi, when he was by the Chorban, the Medrash square, right, he got into a philosophical discussion, and they asked him.
They always won. They always won the arguments.
They won the argument, but it seems like it wasn't just like he's dismissing as yeah. That's my question. It's chachma, but it's not, but it doesn't have to lead to kfira, I guess.
It sounds like it does. In other words, it was chachma, but it was tainted. It wasn't right.
You were tainted. They were like, the Rambam says Aristotle was, his brilliancy was, you could have been.
Yeah, but he wasn't called a Rishon, right?
Who are Aristotle? Yeah, but he didn't. He also didn't dismiss it as a chachma. Here he seems to be like saying it's based on nothing, no foundation. I don't know. I'm just.
All right.
If I would read it now, I would have no understanding of it. I guess so. Unless truth is true, a lot of medicine has some basis in it, but
I hear. All right.
I would tell you, I once heard my uncle, Rabbi Walpin, was talking, by my uncle, by another uncle, my other Shevat Brachos, who was saying that, I forgot who it was, who had with one of the queens, she asked what Hashem is doing. He's making shidduchim, right? She says, that's what's the big deal. She made a bunch of shidduchim and they didn't go, didn't go. But my uncle said, obviously, she wasn't an idiot, and
Right.
otherwise this whoever it was,
Wouldn't be in the Gemara.
he wouldn't be in discussing it with her. There must be something there, and the Gemara brings. But I'm saying, I'm guessing the Gemara wouldn't talk about the Tanaim and Amorim dismissing foolishness. I imagine it would be something
Right.
that's
Right. But you know what? I think what he's saying, he's not saying that. He's saying at that time he said it was considered wisdom. Today, looking back, now we see how.
And then I have another. Looking back, I think now a lot of the people that dismiss their wisdom, would dismiss the Chacham also. I think, well, not a lot of the non-from professors, they look at the way medicine was practiced then, and it's all archaic, and they take it. They were a bunch of idiots, and I think they weren't a bunch of idiots. Out of certain things like that, we maybe don't understand the way they looked at the four humors and things like that, which had no base, which they dismiss it. I think we just don't understand what maybe they meant, but I don't think they were dumb.
Simcha, they weren't.
Yeah.
They were very wise, and it's definitely you're definitely correct saying if the Gemara brings the discussion, right? But the Gemara is bringing it because to show that it was false, right? It wasn't like some drunken guy.
To show that their conclusions, it was like that.
Okay.
Well, maybe let's say that to any conclusion that leads to kfira, there's some.
And you have to know where the mistake is, right? Big hashkafic questions. Right? You're right. The Gemara wouldn't quote it if it wasn't. But like Rognovsky said, right, that the Maisa, it's brought to show that it's not right. It's not emes. I think what Miller is saying is just today, looking back, and maybe it's not even today. Because
Ray Miller certainly knows the philosophy better than I do. I just,
so he's saying then it was a chokhmah, and you needed to have, an argument. You needed to. Today, it's not accepted anymore. So today, looking back, I think he's saying we don't see it as what was the big thing. But
I think then even today, I think there are people that people still it's respected as as a philosophy. I mean, that's what all the foundational. I mean, I'm not a philosopher, but
yeah,
what I know, it's still quoted as that's
but by who?
The people who study this stuff. I mean, even the people who learn the Rishonim who are into philosophy, like the Rambam and all the and are still within this realm of thinking and in the
Okay. He's saying today we look back and see how false it was. In those days, it was the truth. It was a truth.
Even like the Chovos haLevavos is
Go back to Avram's time. Go back to Avram's time.
Yeah.
Right. The whole world believed one thing, and Avram stood up against them. Right.
Right.
Well, we're not talking about idiots, right? We weren't talking about gorillas swinging from trees, right? It was a philosophy. It was a philosophy of life. It was big people on this. The Torah, like you're saying, the Torah doesn't discuss, things that if it wasn't, call it a big tumah, call it a big whatever it is, but it was a real philosophy. The whole world bought into it.
Even the Chovos haLevavos, and we don't learn the whole first shar, but that's really dealing with
But like I told
the
you, what my
philosophy.
Rebbe said,
Yeah.
my Rebbe said about the first shot today, it's not relevant then. Right? It's so if I'm just saying Avraham Avinu, that's the greatness of him, that he was able to stand up against what the whole world believed in. We're not talking about, evolution. They were a bunch of apes. They were very intelligent. There was, and it took an Avraham Avinu. Today, when we look back at those, like, you don't even have the Eitzaharas anymore of Avodah Zarah. You look at Avodah Zarah and you think it's silly, right? But in those days, it didn't look silly at all. It looked like very, very real, and the whole world. Okay,
All right.
we went over time. Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. It's quite all right.
See everybody tomorrow. Shkayach.
That's Hashem. We'll
Good
see you tomorrow. Yeah.